So today we're going to take a look at some factoring questions for the 6-1 quiz, focusing on taking out the greatest common factor. So for the first one, looking at the 3x cubed plus the 15x, the common factor would be 3x. When we divide each of the other terms by 3x, we get x squared plus 5. And again, we can double check to make sure that we come up with 3x cubed plus 15x by multiplying the 3x back through. So again, probably worth your time to make sure that you do that. Looking at number 2, we have a trinomial. So looking at the number part that we can factor out for 8, 10, and 6, the greatest common factor there is a 2. And each of those terms has a w in it, so we can factor out a 2w. So again, all we do is divide like the 8wx by the 2w, that gives us 4x. Dividing the 10wy by 2w gives us 5y, and dividing the 6wz by 2w gives us 3z. Notice on those, just figuring out which sign to use, whether it's plus or minus, and going from there. We have a bit more stuff here for number 3 with the 30, the 54, and the 18. Again, trying to come up with the greatest common factor for each of those, and it looks like 6 goes into each one of those. So we can take a 6 out. Then we have some x's and some y's. So really what we do is we look for the lowest degree that we have of each. So the lowest degree for x we have is x to the 4th, and the lowest degree we have for y is y to the 2nd. And so that's what we're going to divide out of those three terms. 30 divided by 6 gives us 5. And we took 4 of the 9 x's, so again, really that's a subtraction. So 9 minus 4 gives us 5, so 5x to the 5th. And we took 2 of the 7 y's, so y to the 5th. There'll be a minus sign there. 54 divided by 6 would give us 9. And the x's, we took all 4 of those x's, so we don't have any x's remaining, and we took 2 of the 5y, so 9y cubed. Then we have a plus. 18 divided by 6 would be 3. X to the 7th, we took 4 of those, so we have an x cubed, and we took all of the y's. So that is it for that one. For number 4 here, it looks a little trickier. Really what we're going to focus on is the fact that both of these have a 2 minus m as a factor. So we factor that out, 2 minus the m, and then what we're left with is the 5m plus 7n. Again, it's not our normal type of factoring, but again, we can certainly see that we can take that 2 minus m out. And if we were to distribute the 2 minus m to the 5m and the 7n, we'd see that we get back to where we started from. Number 5 is very similar to number 4, and this time the common factor we have is x minus 7, so we factor that x minus 7 out, and we are left with an x plus 5 and an x plus 9, so it looks a little different here. I'm going to leave the parentheses off of the x plus 5 and x plus 9 since we do have some like terms that we can combine there. And so we end up with x minus 7 times 2x plus 14. So an interesting little question there. And then actually, the 2x plus 14, there's a common factor in there. And again, really tough to see that going into the problem. But we can take and factor 2 out of that. I'm going to pull that all the way out front. We have an x minus 7 and then an x plus 7. So certainly important that we take that 2 out to completely factor that expression. For number 6, the directions say it right there, factor by grouping. So when we have 4 terms like that, what we want to do is group the first 2 generally. We can change that if we want or need to. We'll group the first 2 and we will group the second 2. Now for each of those sets of terms there's a common factor. For the first pair we just can take an s out. That leaves us with s plus 9. And the second pair we can take a 3 out. That also leaves us with s plus 9. Again, looking at that, notice they both have that factor of s plus 9 in common, so we'll factor that out. And then we're left with the s plus 3. So that's what we're looking at. And we could see if we were to FOIL or box that out that we would get back to where we started. This one a little bit strange just because you could combine the 3s and the 9s, but we're really just looking at how to factor that by grouping. Now here we're continuing to factor by grouping. With this one, again, you have to be careful here because of the minus that's in front of that 10x. So I would leave that out in front, but now it's in front of my parentheses, so I have to switch my sign here. Now it's a 10x, so that when I distribute that minus through, I get minus 10x. And oftentimes people forget that they also need to switch that sign in front of the 20. Notice now the way that it looks, if I were to distribute the minus through, I would get minus 10x minus 20 like I'm supposed to. So again, just something to be mindful of. A lot of people struggle with that step. From here, just factoring out the common factor, we take an x squared out of the first pair, we get x plus 2. Now we expect to get an x plus 2 out of here. That can help you see what it is you're taking out. In this case, it's going to be a 10. And notice then we have x plus 2 as a common factor, so we can factor that x plus 2 out, and then we get x squared minus 10. Again, the other way of thinking of that last step is you can think of them as like terms. You're combining x plus 2's. Well, you have x squared of them here, and you've got minus 10 of them there. So, all right, looking at our final question, again, notice the difficulty with where the minuses are, 14r squared plus the 63ry. Now, putting that minus here means I have to switch these signs. So I get a 2xr minus a 9xy. And again, I just want to take out what I can. From this first one, I can take out a 7r. That leaves me with 2r plus 9y. Oh, and here I forgot to change my sign there. I was thinking about one thing and not doing another. Now I do expect to get a 2r plus 9y, and that's kind of helped me to figure that I had to change that sign there, that I had forgotten to do that. The only thing I can take out of that second pair is an x. That leaves me with a 2r plus 9y, which will work out the way that I expect it to. So again, notice we've got 2r plus 9y as a common factor, so we can factor that out. So 2r plus 9y. And then that would leave us with the 7r minus the x. So those are the factoring questions for the 6-1 part of the quiz. Again, looking at taking out greatest common factors and also looking at factoring by grouping. Thanks for watching, and hopefully it helped.